Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. We are here today to talk about a tantalizingly almost complete cycle that I basically just stumbled on today. If you don't know really what I mean when I say a cycle, well, when it comes to magic cards, there will be like a sequence of cards that all fit together. I think the easiest example to really think of is pick any magic set that's been put out in recent times. It will have lands. You'll have like a white-blue land. You'll have a green-red land. They'll have 5 different types of those lands. That's a cycle, right? Now, cycles can be, if they're multicolored, they can stretch across 10 cards, or you can have singular color cycles. So we're going to be looking at a singular color cycle today that is missing one card, and this is a looser type of cycle. Cycles that are tighter are ones where you get them all in one set. This is a little more disparate, but nonetheless, I don't think intentionally, a pattern has been set where we're only missing one color having a prophecy card. I came across this picture on Reddit where somebody had put the white prophecy and the red prophecy, and don't worry, we're going to look at all these cards, side by side up on the screen, and I looked and I was like, oh, that's cool. That'd be worth looking into. So I went to go and look at the cards on another site where I could look more in depth at the images, and I did a search for prophecy, and I found that there are only 4 cards in the entire history of Magic the Gathering that have prophecy in the name. Yes, there are prophets. Yes, there are prophetic cards, but there are literally only 4 prophecies in the game currently, and there's one for each color except for one, and we will get into that afterwards, the color that's missing for the cycle, and we'll discuss the longing of completion that we're looking for. But either way, what we're going to do is historically go through this cycle from the very beginning, which is the white card, which is just prophecy. I mean, we're doing the prophecy cycle here, so it makes sense to start out with prophecy from the good old days of Magic when they could use these nice tight one-word names. Just bam, this is prophecy. That's how this works. Nowadays, they're a little more hesitant to use words so freely. They tend to like to reserve words that have an instant understandable meaning for more powerful cards, which I think is a smart move. So a prophecy, for those of you who are not aware of it, essentially in like human history, prophecies are considered to be divinely inspired, right? Where the idea behind it is, in a lot of like mythology, things like that, a god will basically be transmitting a prophecy to some sort of, usually a person, right? And this can be direct imparting, or it can be cryptic. So it could be a god literally saying like, yo, we need you to build an ark because there's going to be a flood. Or it could just be like somebody whose dreams are haunted by endless rains, and their families are shown like submerged under the waters. And so it just comes to them like they get this compulsive need to build this boat. Either variation works for a prophecy concept. So I will tell you the flavor behind this prophecy, because this card is way more enjoyable when you understand what you're seeing. So it's 1 white. It says, reveal the top card of target opponent's library to all players. If it's a land, gain 1 life. That opponent then shuffles his or her library. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So at first your brain just goes, wait, okay, so the prophecy is you reveal the top card of target opponent's library to everyone, so everyone's going to know what's coming. And then if it's a land, you gain a life. Okay, all right. I mean, you're benefiting off your prophecy. And then you read the rest and you're like, wait a minute. That opponent then shuffles his library. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So you reveal the top card of the opponent's library, and it's a prophecy of what's never to come to pass. Or the prophecy is represented by you drawing a card. Actually, the draw card concept is very strong across this prophecy, and that makes sense. I mean, if you're having information imparted to you, drawing a card makes perfect sense. So I've always really enjoyed the artwork on prophecy. Even if you don't know who is represented in this artwork, you can appreciate it. It gives you an idea of a prophecy, right? This could be somebody staring into the future, and you can actually see the, like, if you were to be viewing this prophet head on, you could actually see this crazy, dark, monstrous looking individual who's just lurking there with red eyes. Like, so much malice to this, right? But when you actually know what the deal is, this is Ison. This is Ison's shade, more specifically. This is a paladin who set out to actually take out Baron Senger, right? The big Baron from Homelands. He basically wanted to stop his tyrannical rule. So Ison had a plan to go and offer himself to the Baron's services, to be drained, like all of his blood taken, and to be rebirthed as a vampire. That was Ison's plan. But unfortunately for Ison, what happened was the Baron knew what was up. So he drained all the blood from Ison, but then instead of completing the vampiric rite, he cast some other old incantation that enslaved Ison's spirit, his shade, to serve the Baron. And so basically, like, Ison's entire reputation, he was a high-ranking, important paladin, and he went and ended up serving the Baron instead. And nobody from his homelands thinks of him as a hero. They just think of him as a betrayer. It's a really sad story. I did a whole video on it when they did the new Ison Shade artwork. So if you want to go back and check it out, it should be in my lore video playlist. I go into the entire story of the tragedy of Ison. But either way, when you see that, it makes you wonder, like, who is this? Is this Ison actually like a reflection? He's looking in the mirror and is in his own eyes. He can see the shade he's going to become. Did, like, some god look down and say, dude, you better watch out. Like, you're legitimately about to walk into essentially a trap. You're trying to be heroic and noble, and instead you're just trapped in servitude. And he's bound to a magic ring that he can't escape from. So anybody can force him into servitude. But either way, this was the first card that had a prophecy concept. Admittedly, it is a little bit weird, but it's got a bunch of elements that come together to make it feel like a prophecy. You gain information about your opponent's deck, you draw a card, so you learn about something that could happen in the future, and you gain some power at the same time. That sounds like a pretty decent prophecy to me. So that was the very first prophecy. The second prophecy, and understand, there was about an 18-year gap between these two cards. The second prophecy is Dark Prophecy. This one's a little bit weird. It's 3 black, it's an enchantment. Half the prophecies that exist so far are instants and sorceries, and half are enchantments. So that's another reason that it's like a loose cycle, tied together by name only, and it may just be a cycle in my heart. You know what I mean? Wizards may not have actually been designing this as a cycle, but now that I know it exists, there's a part of me that yearns for completion. So, 3 black enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. The flavor text says, when the bog ran short on small animals, Ek returned to the surrounding farmlands. So this is a pretty straightforward card. When you take a look at the artwork, you can see a very, very twisted individual. Honestly, if you take a look at the larger size of the artwork and take a look at the face of this mage, because when you look at it back, like table level glance across the board, you'll be like, yeah, I can see that they've got like a little kind of vicious grin on, but the face on this individual is intense. And what's inside their hands? You can see there's an animal sacrifice on this big stone table behind her, along with the implements of sacrifice. But something has been extracted from inside of this animal and is now literally in this mage's hand. You can see a reddish kind of stain on the fingers. It's pretty subtle in some ways, in terms of like not being like bright crimson and dripping to the point where you may not even have realized at first. You might just think they have their hands clasped, but there's definitely something inside there. And this speaks to like a style of divination, right? There are different ways to try and read the future. One is to toss like bones or tiles or dice. Another is to read the entrails of animals, which is it's a crazy concept. To think that people in the past actually used to do this. To think that you could figure out the future by looking at the insides of an animal is an absolutely bizarre concept. Now, this mage right here just gives you the idea of somebody who would, like, you know, there'd be someone who did stuff to kids as like an animal. No, stuff to animals as a kid. Got that reversed. Either way, that's just the kind of vibe that you get from this. It's weird because it's Dark Prophecy, and that just sounds like it would be one prophecy, but every time a creature goes, you end up drawing a card and losing a life from this, right? But it's not like you choose intentionally to sacrifice those creatures. Those creatures can go for any reason. So the flavor of this ties together in a whatever kind of way. Honestly, the power level of this card is not too shabby. I don't have one of these in my cube, but that's just because somehow it wasn't on my radar. After looking at this card, it's 100% going in my cube. I like it, and it falls into the concept of prophecy, but it definitely is the most grim and dark one. I mean, the flavor text is pretty awful. And I imagine at a certain point, the farmers are going to start to rise up, right? Because their animals are going missing. Let's take a look at the third prophecy. And that one, again, took a number of years, right? We didn't get the next prophecy until Theros, like the second Theros set, the one we just went through. Now, that's Madomai's prophecy. I actually did a full video on this card, so if you want like a full-on in-depth talk about this particular enchantment, that is available back a few months ago in my Theros content. So 1 blue and 1, and this is a saga. Basically, it works in 4 steps. The first step is to scry 2. The second step is choose a card name. The third step is when you cast a spell with the chosen name for the first time this turn, draw 2 cards. And the fourth step is look at the top card of each player's library. So it's pretty funky in that the first is scry 2, so that's like see the future, right? The second stage is to state the prophecy, almost like a prophecy doesn't have the same level of realness or tangibility until it's stated out into the world. The third step is essentially the prophecy becoming fulfilled, and because you're aware of what the prophecy is going to be, you've been able to maneuver yourself into a position to take advantage of it, so you gain those cards off it. And the fourth is to once again look into the future, and this time you get to see your opponent's future as well. Not too shabby. The artwork's pretty straightforward in terms of you can see Madomai. He is basically set against the Nixian sky, looming over a Theros temple style building with a brazier that has fire, like, and smoke is leaching upwards into the air and converting itself somehow into like blue magic. That part's not quite as straightforward, but either way, the artwork's pretty simple. It's Madomai hanging out at a temple, given some of that prophecy. As far as I recollect, Madomai would come and make these declarations to the citizens of Miletus, and whatever Madomai prophesized would become reality. So it wasn't really guesswork. It was like the real deal. But if you want more information on that, that's another card that got a full video treatment for me. Now, the last card we're going to talk about is the red prophecy. And this is the one that alongside the first one we looked at, prophecy, with ice and shade in the eye and this red fire eye, I really enjoy it. I'd be totally cool if they actually did a prophecy for every color that had this eye concept to the artwork. So 1 red and 1, it's an instant. This one's actually brand new, right? Icorian. Fire prophecy deals 3 damage to target creature. You may put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. If you do, draw a card. And the flavor text says, water and bone tell many tales, but fire is fickle. It would rather consume than reveal. I have to say, as far as flavor text goes, this is really cool. You know what I mean? Like, water and bone tell many tales. I actually already said previously in the video, people will read the bones, right? And the water concept is just sometimes like, think of like a reflecting pool, like in Lord of the Rings or something like that, where you look into a still water surface and it acts almost like a mirror of reality and lets you see what's going on in the world. So water and bone tell many tales, but fire is fickle. As in, getting a prophecy from fire isn't as easy. You don't get the same deal as you get when you're dealing with water or bone, because it would rather consume than reveal. I love that flavor text very much. And the artwork shows this eye in the moment of prophecy. I really enjoy the concept that basically what's happening is you're making a sacrifice to gain this prophecy. So to look into the future, you have to burn some knowledge out of your own brain. So all of a sudden your eyes snap open and there's just flames flowing through your eyes as it completely burns away part of what's in your mind and replaces it with something else. That's the prophecy. The concept of, like, you only get the card if you're willing to put a card on the bottom of your library, right? This is conditional. If you don't choose to allow it to burn away part of your memory, then you don't get this new information. And that ties so well into it would rather consume than reveal, where it's like, I'm not going to give you a revelation unless you give me the joy of burning away one of your memories. And that is some intense magic to wield. You know, that's some gutsy stuff to use. I really enjoy the way that Fire Prophecy and Prophecy look side by side. So I'm going to put them up on the screen now together because I absolutely love this. It looks great. And that leads me to the fact that there is no green prophecy in Magic the Gathering. It's been 26 years. We need completion. Now that we just got the red one. Oh, I don't know. We got Madomai's and the red one in the last couple sets. So maybe we'll actually get our final prophecy really soon. I would be down for that. My friends, I got some packages in the mail today. We're going to open them up in tonight's chill stream. So come on by for that if you want to. Thanks for swinging by. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments below. If you haven't subscribed and want to get on board, we're having a good time here. Liking and commenting helps the video and the channel, which is always nice. Speaking of helping the channel, big shout out to my patrons and channel members. Thanks for coming by, everybody. I gotta go. I'm history, baby.